on the other side, John likes one prize exchanges too because he's playing Little Blacephalon.
And that Little Blacephalon we saw on stream first round yesterday with Rahul Reddy, it did not go particularly well for him, but clearly John has had a lot of success with it as he is making it into day 2 and top 12 in his group. But of course, the groups have come together now. Everybody gets to play against everybody else. We're going to kick things off right away here. Going to be a baby buzz in the active for Ondrej. And right off the bat, Green's Exploration for John Eng.
Yep, this is the ideal start for John. He's able to find his greens and start to get himself some of those trainer cards that he's looking for. Generally, you want to find yourself a Fiery Flint. It's going to be able to start to get all these fire energies out of your deck, and then you're more likely to draw into all the cards you're really looking for. Heat Factory is another great card to target down. It's going to be able to draw you some cards and get your hand really big. He'd like to have a large amount of resources to pull from to keep in these exchanges that he's going to have with Ondrej.
This deck from John is, let's say, light on Pokemon. In fact,
that's fair.
Just 4 Blacephalon.
Yeah, I'm sure he's used to mulliganing a lot for his opponents.
Maybe. But it's going to be all that recent fire support that the archetype has gotten from Dragon's Majesty, from Unbroken Bonds with the Fiery Flint, the Fire Crystal. Welder coming out of Unbroken Bonds is a really powerful supporter card. You can attach up to 2 fire energy from your hand to one of your Pokemon, and then you can draw 3 cards if you do that. Pretty nice.
So he liked every card in his hand so much that he threw away a greens that he got with a greens. That's got to tell your opponent something, right?
That they're in trouble?
He could have chose any trainer in his deck, and he chose something to throw away with his Fiery Flint.
I guess he's thinking that he has exactly what he needs. He doesn't necessarily want to draw into that greens later on, so you might as well just pull it out of the deck and immediately get rid of it.
All right, we see the second Blacephalon come down into play. And this is where John wants to be. He's going to pass it over to Ondrej now, and we'll see what he's able to do.
So the point of this Blacephalon is to use the attack Fireball Circus, which does 50 damage times the amount of fire energy that you discard from hand. And there's only 13 fire energy in the deck, but there's so many ways to tutor them out of the deck into your hand and to get them back from the discard pile that any more than that would be overkill, basically.
Yep. The players are going to be, John's going to be using Wishful Baton to try to keep those 3 energies in play, and then he continually will go through his hand and use energies from his hand to take knockouts on his opponent. It's a lot more difficult when your opponent plays one-prize attackers, but both players are going to kind of have that exchange happening over and over again.
Yeah, this is going to be a bit of a back and forth. 2 really interesting decks to kick things off here with today, and going up against each other, maybe not something that we expected, but I'm quite excited to see how this one actually goes down, because like you were saying, Ondrej just has a bunch of dark types in his deck, and not necessarily what we're used to. We saw Quad Spiritomb yesterday, but it was paired with Stunfisk, which does 30 damage times the amount of Pokemon that you have that are damaged. And Spiritomb, of course, can damage itself, so you can hit very high numbers with that Stunfisk. But this is not a Stunfisk variant. This is using Umbreon from Lost Thunder.
Yep. So in we're going to see Ondrej using Hustle Belt very often in these decks. He's going to try to keep his Pokemon at 30 hit points or less so that they do more damage. So in combination with Spiritomb, doing damage to itself, he can reach pretty important numbers. And then, of course, when that Pokemon is knocked out, he can sneak in with an Umbreon and do even more damage. So he's very okay with his Pokemon being knocked out and throughout all stages of this match.
Yeah, that Umbreon for 1 Dark Energy does have Retaliate. 30 damage plus 90 if one of your Pokemon were knocked out on the previous turn by damage from an opponent's attack. Very important.
Yep.
But seeing as that's the only way that John is going to be dealing damage, gonna make things pretty simple.
Yep. It lines up fairly well for Ondrej. So now Ondrej has some decisions to make. It looks like he's eyeing up Marshadow Let Loose. Be great to interrupt John's hand. As we saw, it got fairly large. Looks like he's sitting on 6 or 7 cards, and he knows that John's sitting on something good because he threw away a card that he just grabbed out of his deck.
Yeah, I noticed that there was a Fiery Flint last turn, so there's quite a few fire energy in hand for John. Might as well just put that all back into the deck.
Yeah.
See if you can try to limit what John can do on the following couple of turns by putting him to 4. And that is going to happen.
So fairly risky for both players, honestly. Seeing any supporter off of these 4 cards would be great. This is kind of where John could get punished for discarding that greens, but I mean, what do you do at that point? You're trying to have supporters in your deck, but when you already have all the good cards you want, you don't want those supporters. And just happens to find a let loose and needs to find an answer here.
There is, of course, that Viridian Forest in play, so John can find additional fire energy through that means.
Yep.
But when you're let loose to just 4 cards in hand, you kind of need all 4 of those cards.
This is nice, fair Pokemon. You know, both players aren't doing anything wild. There's nothing worth more than $3 on the field right now. So they're just, it's like
budget Pokemon TCG.
This is what I'm talking about.
There's no Tag Team GX Pokemon in play. No rainbow rares. We're keeping it.
Oh yeah.
Keeping it clean.
This is something the kids at home can play.
And win with. I mean, both these guys 7-1-1 yesterday. Easily picking up the required 19 points.
So we see John once again. That Fiery Flint is a fantastic card for his deck. Able to fuel up, get all of those fire energies into hand. He's going to need those for welders, for attacking, for attaching. So going to see fire energies all over the place from John.
It's going to be a Pokegear.
Fantastic ordering from John as well. Just taking out all those fire energies from deck. Now he gets to look through, has much more options as far as item cards, and actually all 7 of those are item cards. He's just like, eh.
Not necessarily what he's looking for. He would love to have a welder here to be able to double attach to the Blacephalon and start attacking right away. But as such, is just going to have to attach from hand. Can't attack just yet. Well, he can Blazer.
Yep, flip over a prize card, and who knows what it was.
Not a fire energy.
Yep. All right, we'll have to see what Ondrej has in store. And yeah, he definitely got the better end of that let loose. He has an Oranguru, so he's going to have that refuel if he can drop his hand below 3. And also with that Cynthia, he's going to be able to draw 6 cards. Definitely going to be looking for Umbreon, Spiritomb. Just wants to start to get cards that can help provide some damage output, because right now his is pretty low.
You see John sitting on that Lusamine Prism Star right now. You can only play that if your opponent has 3 prize cards remaining, but then on the following turn, your opponent cannot do any damage to your Ultra Beasts.
Yep.
So it's a nice little, essentially, skip your opponent's next attacking phase. But right now, not doing too much for John.
So Ondrej is able to grab himself that Spiritomb. He's going to start damage himself, which doesn't seem like the right thing to do, but it is. He wants to get a lot of damage on there, so Anguish Cry gets fueled up. If it's enough damage to knock out a Blacephalon, it's a pretty fair trade for him. A Pokemon with 3 energies attacking compared to his just 1.
All right, Erica's Hospitality for John.
That's a big draw for John. He needed to get something going because his hand was not looking good, especially after the failed Pokegear.
Yeah, you can finally attach that 3rd fire energy, start attacking with Fireball Circus. Viridian Forest, get another energy out of the deck.
Also important to note, looking over at Ondrej's deck list, I do not see any field blowers, so these Wishful Batons are going to stick, and that is huge for John. He wants to continually move those 3 energies around with his Blacephalons. If he doesn't have to attach those, that means he has more fuel for knocking out these Pokemon.
Mm-hmm.
So has to discard 3, just a little awkward for him, but it's not the end of the world. Going to take out that Buzzwole and grab himself the first prize of the game.
Basically, from here on out, John's goal is to take a knockout every single turn.
Right.
He's got the first knockout of the game. They're going to be trading 1 prize knockouts. So if he can maintain this momentum and keep attacking every turn, then he should be at an advantage.
So being that a Pokemon was knocked out last turn, due to damage from his opponent, Retaliate is live. So Umbreon, just one energy, is going to be able to take out this Blacephalon.
But because that Wishful Baton is attached, John can go ahead and just move those 3 fire energy to the Blacephalon on the bench, move that up to the active, and keep attacking.
Pokegear's out of both players.
Ondrej bringing that Guzma up to the front. Send it all back.
Sometimes failing is the correct answer, especially with Instruct available. Maybe you can get your hand low enough to draw into something more important later. Yep, we just would rather have one card, and wow, it actually ends up being an Ultra Ball. That could be pretty useful into drawing some cards in the future turns. Has a Rainbow Energy, which is pretty valuable, so may not want to use the Ultra Ball this turn. Could just wait until next turn, get that energy attachment down, and then Instruct for the full 3. Yeah, he's really debating this here. All right, he thinks it's time. Curious to see what he values here. He does have a second Marshadow if he thinks that John's hand has enough gas to keep going.
Could grab an Eevee and then next turn get a Dark Energy off of Viridian Forest.
Yep.
Get that Umbreon right out of the deck.
He could start compiling damage with a Spiritomb. There's a lot of different options for him. Yeah, it looks like he's valuing that Eevee.
I think because right now he only sees 2 Blacephalon, he knows that he can take a knockout on the active. Next turn there's going to be that benched Blacephalon moving up, and then with another Retaliate he can knock that out. And maybe he's thinking there's a chance that John doesn't have another Blacephalon or a Rescue Stretcher right now.
Yeah.
So he'd rather have another attacker ready to go.
Well, that works out fairly well for Ondrej. John is going to be playing that greens. He's definitely going to eye up either Rescue Stretcher or Nest Balls, something to get Blacephalons into play. Looks like he already has a Wishful Baton in hand, so going to be able to keep those energies in play. Just needs to make sure that he has some attacks continually. I think I also see the Fire Crystal, so he'll have the fire energies to knock out his opponent here.
Yeah, you get those back from the discard. Again, just continuous ways to recycle energy, put them into your hand. Discard them with Fireball Circus to get those knockouts for a 1-prize attack. Keep the engine going. We can see the other 2 Blacephalon are in the deck for John.
Yeah, he's debating if it's time to pull them out now, and seems like it's the right play to do. Just make sure you have them now. If your opponent does play something like a Marshadow, you'd much rather have these on the bench right now.
He's looking for another Wishful Baton.
Yeah, it looks like he's just going to have to hope to find that in the future turns.
He does have Welder in hand.
Yeah.
Oh, there's the Wishful Baton. He's all good.
So if he wants to draw cards this turn, he could. Well, actually, he's used the greens already, so we're going to hold that Welder for a following turn.
Issue being, he had to Fire Crystal this turn to get the energy back just to get the knockout with Fireball Circus.
Right.
And then he's not actually going to have any energy in hand to attach with Welder.
Yeah. He would have to use the Viridian Forest and get rid of a card that he probably values in his hand, so it would have been pretty tricky.
It's a bit unfortunate. Definitely looking for another Fire Crystal if that's the case. But he does take the knockout onto the Umbreon. Going down to 4 prizes. Ondrej, having pulled that Eevee from the deck on the last turn, can Viridian Forest for a Dark Energy. It's the Energy Evolution Eevee, so once you attach an energy of that type, you can pull an evolved Pokemon from the deck of that type.
I'm going to go with Umbreon.
Yeah, I like Umbreon. I'm a little biased. It's
Yeah.
my favorite.
He's pretty cool. Since the Pokemon was knocked out, we got Retaliate once more. It's going to work out pretty well against these Blacephalon.
Math checks out, Kyle.
We don't need Kenny this time.
Ooh. He's got that let loose Marshadow, but also a Lily in hand that he could just use to draw 5 cards.
Yeah, I think it's time for a Lily. John really hasn't shown much going on in his hands, so I'm not too worried about what John's doing. I think Ondrej's definitely getting the better of these exchanges.
Yeah, he is still technically behind in the prize race, but it's
Right.
looking like John is going to trip at some point. He just doesn't have the resources available to keep this going every single turn.
Spiritombs are going to injure themselves a little more.
Ramp up the damage so that Anguish Cry can eventually do enough to knock out.
If there were another Eevee, we could potentially see that. I believe the Umbreon line, yeah, it's a 3/3 line. So if a piece of that is in the prize card, it's more likely to go for a Spiritomb here.
And that is going to be the case.
That Spiritomb's likely to damage himself as well.
30 more damage for each damage counter on this Pokemon. That adds up really quickly.
Yeah.
There's 120 damage currently from the Spiritomb with the Rainbow Energy. Ondrej going to take a knockout with Retaliate, go down to 4 prizes. And because of that Wishful Baton, Blacephalon on the bench does move to the active with 3 energy, but John has nothing in hand.
Yeah, with John taking the first prize, his counter catcher is never really going to help him out if he wants to stay in the exchanges, so just going to throw that away for a fire energy here. But now this is where it gets so tough. He needs 3 energies to keep attacking, whereas Ondrej only needs 1 every time. This is where the game starts to get pretty interesting. After the next prize card is taken, that Lucamine Prism Star becomes active. We could start to see Ondrej draw into a card like Black Market. So when the prize negating and preventing effects of attack starts to come into play, both players kind of get that prize exchange all mixed up, and it's hard to tell
Things
who's
get
winning.
a little weird.
Yeah,
Pokegear, he's going to pull a Welder.
it's 3 cards. It's not bad.
You do not have to attach to. It's up to 2 fire energy from hand, so 1 gets the job done. You get to draw 3. But there's still only 1 fire energy in hand.
Yep.
Which means there's not going to be a knockout this turn for John.
Yeah, you might just flip a prize card. Who knows? Yeah, looks like the play there.
Oh, he did hit an energy.
This is
Okay.
this is weird for Ondrej too. He's like, wait, you didn't knock me out. My Retaliate's not working, and I don't
That's
really
true.
want Umbreon active.
Don't really want to just have to attach another energy for 60 damage.
I could retreat and use my Spiritomb.
And then you're taking an energy off of the Umbreon, and Ondrej is playing, he's playing 5 Darkness Energy, but you don't want to be discarding cards unnecessarily with Viridian Forest if you don't have to.
Right. Ondrej seems pretty content with that Cynthia off of the Pokegear.
And the more time that's passing, the more damage these Spiritombs are dealing to themselves. But you see, he stopped putting counters on the Spiritomb with 4 damage counters on it because John doesn't have anything with more than 120 hit points.
Right.
You don't need to unnecessarily damage your Spiritomb. You just need them to be at that threshold where they can start taking knockouts.
Yep. And the other Spiritombs can probably stop at that 3 spot just with the Hustle Belt coming in.
Spiritomb only with 60 hit points. Hustle Belt, if you have 30 or less hit points remaining, you do 60 more damage.
Yep. So Ondrej obviously knows his deck inside and out. He can leave all the Spiritombs that aren't at that 4 threshold at 2, and then whenever he decides to attack, he can bump it up to that 3rd spot.
Guzma up the Blacephalon on the bench. Get that Umbreon out because it's not doing anything, and Spiritomb's going to take a knockout here.
Yeah, so he values one of his energies more than 2 of John's energies, which kind of tells you what's important in this matchup. Ondrej really doesn't care what John's doing so long as he has attacks available in the future, which makes a lot of sense.
And because he saw last turn John could not actually take a knockout onto Umbreon, the energy on the Blacephalon is irrelevant. It's the energy in hand that really matters, and Ondrej's got to read that John just doesn't have it.
Right.
Pokegear to start off the turn, picking up Green's Exploration.
John's, I'm just going
to
jump
go back in.
Yeah. So he's got Lieutenant Surge. He can combine this in combination with the green, the Lusamine, have a pretty wicked turn here. Could take a knockout on the Spiritomb. Won't have to worry about a return knockout from Ondrej. And then John just needs to start eyeing up his last 2 prize cards because he's got 2 lined up for sure. And this is where John's deck just becomes energy retrievals, energy recycle systems, energy. If it says energy, it's there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Lieutenant Surge's strategy is a really interesting card because at first glance it seems incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
But there are so many decks right now that don't ever want to be behind in the prize race. There are a lot of decks that just can't really make use of it.
Yeah.
But this inclusion in John's deck, I suppose, is a nod to the fact that he'd like to remain ahead, but a lot of the time he is going to sort of trip and not be able to do that. And then in that case, Lieutenant Surge is a way to try and get ahead again.
Right. So he's used to playing against decks that have large tag team Pokemon. They get up in the active spot and they take big knockouts real early. And John has to work towards those knockouts, usually with 2 attacks. So he'll fall behind in the prize race, and then he'll have 1 really big swing turn. He's getting that swing turn right now against these 1 prize attackers from Ondrej, but it's not going to be nearly as effective as it is in other matchups.
That Lusamine Prism means that Ondrej isn't going to be able to deal any damage to John's Blacephalon on the next turn. So this could be an opportunity for John to jump that prize.
Yep. All those Blacephalon are Ultra Beasts, even if they are little.
They are small but mighty. Their GX cousins have no place here.
Yeah, they can stay back in day 1 where they belong.
Did none of them make it to day 2?
I'd have to check.
Yeah. Zach Lesage is here playing.
Yeah. Waiting for his moment to shine once more. All right, really weird turn for Ondrej. He doesn't even know who to promote. He's like, I can't attack this turn. Do I just
What do I not care about?
So he's going to go with the Oranguru because it has the most hit points. It requires 3 energies to be discarded. So he wants John to have to work really hard for every knockout. The Marshadow was something that I was thinking, but of course it would be only 2 energies there. So he really values making John use every resource available.
Yeah, bringing up these Spiritomb doesn't make any sense because those are 1 energy knockouts now.
Yeah, those are his attackers. He wants to save on those.
Mm-hmm. And then we saw how highly he valued that energy on Umbreon earlier, so he's not going to send that up just to have it be knocked out. We do see that John, I believe, has a Fire Crystal in hand now, however, so he's going to be able to get some of those energy out of the discard and be able to take a knockout on the next turn, it looks like. Rescue Stretcher for Umbreon. Ondrej benching another Eevee.
Yep. Does, of course, have a dark energy in his deck, so should be able to pull 1 for energy evolution as well.
He's actually going to shuffle 2 Umbreon and an Eevee back into the deck. And Ondrej's got the attackers he needs. He has the ability to find the energy to attack. It's just the fact that he has to take this turn off, and John now has the means to take his own knockouts, that it's looking like John is going to go down to 2 prizes while Ondrej's still at 3.
Yep.
And then at that point, Ondrej is going to be looking for John to trip again and not be able to take a knockout on the following 2 turns. You don't ever want to be in a position where you need your opponent to miss.
Right.
That doesn't feel good.
Yeah. So Ondrej has every attack that he needs lined up. He's one energy away from all of his knockouts being right on the board for him. And he's likely to find that, being that there's a Viridian Forest sitting right on the field. And he just drew 6 new cards, including Lily. He's got his, at least believe that's his black market in hand as well. So he can start to deny some prize cards after this Oranguru falls.
Yeah, Black Market, not a card that we've seen all that much, but in a deck that is this heavily dark Pokemon, it makes perfect sense. It sort of acts like that Shedinja that we were seeing yesterday a little bit here and there.
Right.
Denying prizes if your opponent takes knockout on a dark Pokemon that has a dark energy attached to it.
So John has a bit of energy acceleration himself. He has Beast Rings in his deck. If he doesn't think he can get more Wishful Batons into play, he's got that option. Doesn't want to take these fire energies from his deck necessarily, but needs to have attackers. He kind of understands that this is the only way that he's going to win the game. He needs to have 3 Bicephalon with 3 fire energies and fires in hand. It's going to be pretty tricky for him to pull off. Got that Welder to pull 3 more cards as well. Oh man, another Fire Crystal too. So he's got the energies to attack. It looks like he's just 1 Blacephalon and 1 Wishful Baton away.
At any point, he can throw down that Heat Factory, start discarding fire energy to draw additional cards.
John's so smart. He's going to hold that until he sees Black Factory, the Black Market. He just does not want to deal with that.
No field blowers in the deck, so the only way to get rid of the stadium is to counter stadium. And right now, Viridian Forest is perfectly nice for him as well.
Looks through his deck, sees no fire energies.
Yeah, well, at least he knows where they all are now.
Yep, so every card that he draws, he's hoping to see something that brings back fire energies, maybe the retrievals or whatnot. He needs to start to find some of these cards later.
All right, there's going to be a Fire Crystal.
Yep, that helps him a lot.
3 energy from the discard to the hand. I'm going to have to throw them right back to the discard to get the knockout on the Oranguru. John going to go down to 2 prizes.
Found greens off of his prize card as well, so.
Oh, that's pretty important.
I think that John can line this up. There would have to be some hand disruption from Ondrej, and that really just depends on if he has the read or not that he's in trouble, because once that Wishful Baton comes down, if John has the end of the fire energies in hand, this game will be ending with John in the lead.
John's got a Fire Crystal in hand right now. How many has he played this game? Are we looking at 1 still in deck?
It's tough to call.
I'm not sure.
I feel like he's played, this may be the last one that he has. Of course, he has energies available to draw.
Yes.
After that Heat Factory, he could draw into some energy retrievals or cards like that. Greens could help him find that, so he could grab Wishful Baton and an energy retrieval.
Yeah, he's got 2 energy retrieval in the deck. He's not just looking at Fire Crystal being the only engine to get those energy out of the discard.
Yep, and his deck is very low. I believe he's at least sub 10, so he's going to start finding everything he needs soon.
There may be an energy retrieval in his prizes, now that I'm thinking about it. Or possibly the energy recycle system.
Yep.
There's that Black Market that Ondrej's been holding on to.
Yep.
Gonna get rid of the Mew, search the deck with Viridian Forest.
I wonder if he needs to play the Black Market in combination with Marshadow to make sure that it has a better chance of sticking, because he knows that his opponent plays other other stadium cards.
Problem is his bench is full right now.
Right.
He couldn't play the Marshadow anyway, so he's just gonna go for the Black Market and hope that John can't counter it. But like you were saying, John's been holding on to that Heat Factory this whole time, even though it would have been better for him than Viridian Forest. He needed something to be able to counter this Black Market to ensure that all of his knockouts result in prizes.
Energy retrieval too.
Oh, that's big.
Yeah, this is definitely John's game if he can figure it out. He's got two energies off that energy retrieval. Heat Factory can draw him some cards. He found another energy retrieval as well. if he uses greens, he can grab his Wishful Baton, and I just think he locks this up.
Grab that baton. And
And
the
the-
last
and the
fire crystal, there is one
crystal.
left.
Oh,
Okay,
man.
yep, that's going to be more than enough energy for John to get those last 2 prizes.
Depends if he knows his opponent's deck list. He could be scared and think that he needs some energies on his Blacephalon, but honestly, I think he would get there in either way with the amount of energies he has. He'd be able to pull 2 with the energy retrieval, weld them onto his Blacephalon, and then he has that fire crystal as well to back it up. So I think if he just plays the way that he's been playing this whole game, there's no way that he can drop from here.
All right, 3 energy. Take that knockout onto the Umbreon.
And if I'm John, I'm trying to play every card in my hand because I know that my opponent plays Marshadows. I want to make sure that every draw is live. So I would play this Rescue Scratcher. I'd play down another Blacephalon, make sure that I don't run into that card later. He wants to make sure every draw in his deck is live off of a Let Loose. So fantastic play from him. Almost every card that he has there. Fire Energy, Crystal, Guzma, Welder. Everything is pretty good for him there.
If it all gets shuffled back into the deck, he's got so many live draws to pick up exactly what he needs to get that final prize. Energy Recycle System is the last prize in his prizes.
Yep.
But that is okay.
Who needs it?
It's not him. He's got that Fire Crystal. And Ondrej's hit points on his Pokemon have been making this game a little bit more difficult than John would have preferred. 110 here, 60 there. It's a little bit annoying for him to have to get rid of 3 energy every time.
Yeah.
But we've seen he has just so much retrieval, so much of that energy recycling engine that even then he hasn't really struggled much. That big Lusamine turn is what got him back into this.
John's really wishing that Electropower had a cousin like Pyro
Power.
Even plus power. Just something to get that little extra damage. But
Yeah.
no, he's managed his resources perfectly here. This is exactly what Ondrej needs to do. Great spot by him, but I think John played around it exactly the way he needed to.
Like you were saying, minimizing the dead draws that he was going to be putting into his deck. His deck's pretty thin right now.
Ondrej daintily has to move the cards. Oh,
Double Fire Crystal
Yeah,
energy. This is over.
that's what you need.
Plus, with that Heat Factory live,
Oh, yeah.
you could Fire Crystal or just draw into an energy, get rid of it, draw 3 more cards. There was pretty much no chance that John wasn't going to have it.
I think John could deck himself out if he wanted to. He's that low. All right, and that's exactly what John needed to see. He's going to show the crystal, and that's game.
Game number 1 going over to John Ang. Ondrej Skubal, his deck is really interesting. But unfortunately, that Lusamine turn forced him to take a turn off of taking a prize. He got behind in the prize race yet again and was not able to catch up from there. He's sort of relying on John not having what he needs.
Right.
But John's deck is built to consistently have that energy available to him to welder from hand and draw additional cards, to pull from the discard and be able to discard with Blacephalon's attack to be able to take those knockouts. And it just came together for him. He played that last couple of turns really, really well, though, like you were saying, holding on to that Heat Factory to get rid of Black Market at exactly the right time, because he knew that could potentially trip him up and cause him to get behind in the prize race yet again. And then getting that hand down to just the absolute essentials to make sure that he was going to draw into what he needed off of a Let Loose. Really good stuff.
Yep. I like to do a lot of coaching on the side, and those are like the things that I preach. I want to make sure that your 99% can turn into 100%. If you can play those exact cards perfectly, make sure that when you get that hand down as low as possible, that everything is live for you. And John's already figured that out. And this is why you're at the top tables, at the big stage.
So what you're saying is, it's like you're up there playing.
Yes.
Kyle is only taking most of the credit. All right, but we are going to get into game number 2. There's about 15 minutes on the clock. Not a lot of time.
Yep.
That one did take a bit.
Do you remember when I said that John probably mulligans a lot?
Yeah.
I think that could honestly eat like 3 minutes of time right here.
Yeah.
This is not even like a strategy, but this is just something that you also have to account for when you're playing in 50-minute matches.
As if you're mulliganing for 4 minutes.
If you play a 35-minute game and your opponent has 4 Pokemon.
Oh, you did hit one.
There we
Okay.
go. Okay, so
All
not
right.
going to be here as long as it could have been, but
I mean, I had 6 basics in my deck when we were cubing the other day, and I gave my brother 7 mulligans, so
anything can happen.
with 4 Pokemon, on average, it's probably going to be more than this,
Right.
but not too shabby this time around. Nothing too bad in the prizes for Ondrej. 1 Umbreon. 1 Welder.
Double Wishful?
It's a little unfortunate.
Yep.
We saw him use 3 of them in the last game, I believe.
Yeah, it's his definitely his prize card in matchups like these. When your opponent has no field blower, that card is just so strong.
All right, but Ondrej is going to get to go first here.
And we're going to need to see Ondrej pick up the pace. It's not like he was playing slow last game, but he plays this methodical approach where he wants to make sure that he has an answer to everything. At this point, he needs to just play super fast and make sure that he can at least lock in 1 more game to solidify 1 match point for himself.
He was absolutely playing like he was going to win game 1.
Yeah, and it looked pretty good for him until that Lieutenant Surge turn from John.
All right, Green's Exploration turn 1 from John. Pull out a couple of trainers from the deck. Got that Welder in hand, so you would like the energy to attach. Might see him pull out the Fiery Flint.
Yeah, it's always a great card for him to start with. Nestball's kind of just a hedge against a weird Spiritomb knockout popping out of nowhere. Want to make sure you have more Pokemon in play so nothing weird happens. Don't want to jump into a game 3 with 10 minutes left.
Yeah, when you work for 35 minutes to get that first win, you want to insulate yourself against any shenanigans.
Absolutely.
And he's just going to go right back in.
Yep.
Discarding the Pokegear and the Escape Rope, pulling out some energy with the Fiery Flint. And he can't Welder this turn because he played greens, but he can set up for it next turn.
So certainly an opening here for Ondrej on the following turn. John is going to set himself up for a pretty great turn 2, but obviously Ondrej knows that his hand is stacked. If he uses greens and he doesn't need to get himself any additional supporter, he knows that John's going to have everything he wants. Sees 4 fire energies as well, so likely that Welder will be following up next turn. This is a great turn for Ondrej to go for that Marshadow let loose.
Yeah, John's hand is loaded. It is fantastic.
So in combination with Guzma, perhaps, Ondrej could get really aggressive. I don't know if he has the cards available for it, but lining up that Spiritomb with the Blacephalon and then having the Umbreon follow-up.
That Spiritomb's already
Yeah,
hitting
look
150.
at this.
I mean, this is a knockout already. Take that Blacephalon off the board. Get ahead in the prize race.
He was just a Marshadow away from almost locking the game out.
Yeah, I think so. If he could have taken those energies out of hand for John, this would have been a very different game than we saw previously. But even still, John's going to get the knockout here. Ondrej's going to be able to bring up that Umbreon. So John needs to find another Blacephalon right now.
Yeah, this is so weird. He wants to use Welder so that he can get an attack off, but he knows Umbreon will just wipe him out. So off those 3 cards, is he going to find another Pokemon?
He could also play the Heat Factory and get another couple of cards off of that.
This is where John's kind of in survival mode.
Again, he's only got 4 Blacephalon in the deck. That's all he has available to him as Pokemon.
Wow, he's just going to say, hey, I
man,
don't think you
he's
have
scared.
a switching option.
He's really scared.
I wonder if he knows Ondrej's deck list, because it's probably pretty difficult for this Buzzwole to move out of the active spot when John has no bench. I can only think of the Guzma switching effects.
Yeah.
We'll have to see if he has anything else in there.
He just used 1 Guzma on the previous turn. He's got 4 in the deck.
Yep. So this is John showing pretty excellent knowledge of his opponent's deck.
Ondrej's just going to have to pass back. That was a big risk for John to take, but it is going to pay off.
Yeah, now he gets to use this greens. He can go find multiple Blacephalon. He has the Wishful Baton in hand. Don't know if he has enough energies to take the knockout. I don't know if he even wants to take a knockout. Maybe he just wants to exhaust Ondrej of all these energy cards. Kind of just can play survival mode for 10 minutes and try to hold on to that first win that he got.
Depends on how good of a read he got and how long that first game took. He thinks that he can try to outlast here because it's not looking like he can win this one.
Yeah.
Certainly not in the next 10 minutes.
When my opponent plays Dark Energy Pass on a Buzzwole in their large hand, I'm getting a read that they have nothing, and that if I found another Guzma, I would be able to bring up that Buzzwole and buy even more turns.
Yep.
So I would make him attack me with that Buzzwole and a Rainbow Energy for 4 turns if he chooses not to retreat, you know? Counter Catcher as well. It's going to provide a similar effect. So.
And the Nest Ball to pull out another Blacephalon.
Yep.
Make sure he doesn't just lose the game on the spot.
Could just continue to flip prize cards and not take any knockouts.
True. Counter Catcher up that Spiritomb.
Okay.
Oh, he is going to take the knockout.
So he seems content with what he has in hand, with knowing that he has that energy and the Wishful Baton. And he only needs that 1 fire energy to take the knockout on the Spiritomb. He's going to take it. Don't know what he found off of that prize card. Oh, he's got the Pokegear. Okay, so that's going to help him find another potential supporter in the future.
Yeah, that Spiritomb is scary. It does mean that the Umbreon gets to take a knockout this turn because he knocked out the Spiritomb, but there is no Spiritomb ready to go on the bench. So maybe John is thinking, okay, maybe there's not going to be another Spiritomb. I can take this one out of the game, take the knockout on the Umbreon. It's going to take him time to set up another Umbreon. But we see with that Rescue Stretcher, there's Spiritomb right back in the game.
Yeah, John seems to be playing to win as opposed to playing not to lose, which is
sure
fine strategy, but honestly,
if you think you can do it.
Yeah, but with 8 minutes, it can be tricky.
I mean, game number 1 took about 35.
Right.
And it does seem like both these players have picked up their pace of play quite a bit.
Yeah,
but can we still finish this game? I don't know. All right, Cynthia gets 6 fresh cards for Ondrej. He's setting up another Umbreon on the bench.
Ondrej'd love to find his Oranguru at this point. It's just a nice card to lock onto your board so that you know that you're never going to run out of options.
Could have pulled it out with the Nest Ball. He's going to go for a Spiritomb instead.
So he values his attackers more, which he also may have a read that John's hand is subpar.
I think he smells blood in the water.
Right.
He wants to get these Spiritombs up to knockout range really fast, and it does take a couple turns for them to deal damage to themselves before that happens. Ondrej goes down to 4 prize cards. And John going to kick things off with that Pokegear. Again, he's in a position where he needs another Blacephalon.
See, Erica's. So he's got Erica's Hospitality.
You have 4 or less cards in hand. You draw a card for each Pokemon your opponent has.
All right, he really needs to find another Pokemon here. I don't see one.
Nope.
He has the Heat Factory to draw.
He would love to save that again for when the black market comes out, but he doesn't have the time this game.
I'd like to see him use the Viridian Forest to thin out a fire energy.
Discard that second Erica's Hospitality. Yeah, that's exactly what he's going to do.
Got to play all of those outs for himself there. So he's going to take that fire energy out of the deck.
Needs to find a Nest Ball, needs to find a Blacephalon.
Yep. Rescue Stretcher, anything at this point.
If not, he's going to lose this game.
So it would have to be Spiritomb's ability, a Rainbow Energy, and a Hustle Belt to take the knockout. If he chooses not to take a knockout on this turn.
Yep. Well, he's got the energy to knock out the Umbreon if he wants to, but especially if he does not find another Blacephalon, that he's not going to.
Yeah, he needs to. Yeah, John, I think he needs to play the Heat Factory and just try to fish for that other Blacephalon. Definitely can't take the knockout with this turn, yeah. So.
Oh, he's
thinking
just
about
gonna
Blazer and Taser and all sorts of Azers.
Pretty sure that was the entire dodgeball team.
Oh,
Rainbow
boy.
Spiritomb.
Oh,
Belt's
man.
there. That's
Yep,
game
he
2
had
over
it.
to Ondrej. With 5 minutes on the clock. I mean, that was a very fast one.
Man, yeah, with the option to use the Heat Factory, I mean, it's not super likely that you find the Blacephalon, but
Is it more likely than your opponent not having what they need to knock you out?
you just have to last 5 more minutes plus 3 turns. It's so close to call.
I mean, that's what the risk that you take when you're only running 4 basic Pokemon in your deck. If you don't have them and you don't have ways to find them, you can have games that look like this.
Yeah.
And 4.5 minutes on the clock. It's going to take a minute or two to get set up here for both of these players. Looks like this one's probably going to be ending in a draw.
Yeah, unless one player just only finds a Pokemon, which
Could be John.
it could definitely be John. If we see a Spiritomb start with a damage counter and then that same turn with the rainbow damage plus hustle, we could see a Blacephalon fall very early, but
I mean, this deck from Ondrej moves very, very quickly.
yeah. It's rare to see a deck that's so retaliatory have this offense to it, to where you can damage your own Spiritombs and put on pressure when you're usually trying to have your opponent knock you out. You usually have to wait a few turns, or like your opponent dictates when the action starts, but he can do that with the Spiritomb, which is just really, really interesting.
It has really high flexibility. I would love to see how this deck functions against, like Pikachu and Zekrom GX, for instance, against big tag team Pokemon.
I feel like
I think it would be a very different experience.
Against those are fantastic.
Yep.
I feel like he would have a much easier route than playing against John. This is a really difficult deck for him to face because it does a very similar thing to him and has a much better swing turn than his Black Market does.
Yeah, he's setting up to have these 2-turn knockouts onto big tag teams, taking 3 prizes when his opponent's only taking 2. Naturally, he's going to win those games.
Right.
This is a lot more difficult for him to navigate. This just seems like a really intelligent deck choice for the tournament, and something that we haven't seen anybody else have.
It's probably somewhere in that tier 2, tier 3 for most players, but Ondrej has faith in it, and it seemed like a really strong choice in the metagame.
Yeah, those tier 2 decks are the ones that most people aren't going to really consider, but you'll see them pop up from time to time, and they can just absolutely blow out the competition because nobody's prepared for it.
It just spanks you on TCGO, and then you're
like, oh man.
Do I have to worry about this? And
I have to play that.
No, we'll never see that. And it's day 2, and here it is.
Surprise. Spiritombs. All right, but John gets to go first here. Green's Exploration, find that Fiery Flint. And traditionally, he's been pulling out a Nest Ball to get a second Blacephalon here as well. But we'll see what he's favoring.
Seems to already have that in hand, so now what? Maybe eyeing another greens, or who knows?
Possibly.
It's got the Pokegear that could help him fish out. B-String.
Okay.
He just grabs a card he doesn't want again.
He's probably just going to get rid of that.
Yeah, if my opponent's already taken those prize cards,
Take some Flint fodder.
This game had already ended.
Yeah.
There's not much time left.
Yeah, just take something you can get rid of with the Fiery Flint that you're completely fine with.
That's fair.
He's got the Welder, got the Fire Crystal. I mean, he's got that energy engine rolling already. But there's just not time for him to really capitalize on it. 1:20 on the clock.
Right. I think if Ondrej benches 2 more Pokemon, there's no way the game ends.
No. And Ondrej, consistently, we've seen him with full benches every game.
Oh, yeah. He can get there for sure. So Ondrej could try to win this game with cards like Marshadow Let Loose. If he can get John on completely dead hand, then he could go in with that Spiritomb. Hope to just take these 2 Blacephalon out and win the game. I think that's his only strategy for winning the game right now. So
it's a sound one. It happened last game.
Yep.
Last game would have been over even faster if he had the Marshadow, but he didn't.
Yep.
got the EVs set up. His Spiritomb's going. Lily for 4.
6.
Oh, 6. Turn 1.
Sneaker. Finds the
Cheating.
Spiritomb.
And start damaging him. John takes a knockout. That's fine because Ondrej will have Umbreon ready. Just bring that up.
Yeah, they both
Yeah,
go,
they're just,
we can't. I can't win.
Gentleman's agreement. It looked like maybe there was a chance that Ondrej could have done it, but with only 3 turns, what are the odds that John doesn't have another way to get Blacephalon up?
Right.
So that's going to be a draw here in round number 1 of the day for Ondrej Skubal and John Ang. A bit